Hey everyone, this is Arnie from Fanboys Unite Vlogs and more, and welcome. This is our first episode of our my podcast, Opinions, and today we have a very special guest over here. This is Adarsh Sriram, and he is basically on a channel called Adfinity. He is definitely gonna be a fun presence. Okay, so what's this podcast first episode gonna be about? It's gonna be about Marvel versus DC. Again, we're not gonna take any sides. I mean, we are taking sides, but this is not a definitive answer, and we're not gonna declare a winner or anything. That's all up to you guys. Okay, I hope you enjoy this podcast. Pass it on to others now.
Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome to this collab between the Fanboys Unite and Adfinity. So, my name is Adarsh, and I'm doing a collab today with Arnie on DC versus Marvel. So, I'll be supporting Marvel. My channel, it's new. I've started. I have another channel called Tech Dashboard, which has about 125 subscribers. But this is the Adfinity is a new channel because I want to pursue my stream a bit into like vlogs and trailer reactions and collabs and more and more interesting stuff. So by the way, if you want to know Fanboys Unite, that is Arnie, he gave me the idea of making this new channel. So anyways, guys, stay tuned for this awesome collab, and let's get started. So Marvel was founded initially in 1939 in the name of Timely Publications, and by early 1950s this name had changed to Atlas Comics, and this Atlas Comics was founded by Martin Goodman, and Martin Goodman wanted like the corporate entities to have like a different view of exploration to these comics, and therefore he made them Atlas Comics to the umbrella name. And then came Marvel in 1961. In Marvel, it had many like famous characters when it launched: the Fantastic Four, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko. But after that, nowadays we see many important characters like Hulk, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, Daredevil, and X-Men, Guardians of the Galaxy, Fantastic Four, Green Goblin, Magneto, and Loki. Loki is pretty famous. And many of these characters, they're based in New York City. So if you see the movies, you can see that they're based in New York City. Now, the thing is, the Marvel is currently owned by, a surprising fact, Walt Disney Corporation. It was purchased in 2009 by Walt Disney when the board of directors found that it was a really good purchase, because we can see how well the trailer is doing right now, the Infinity War trailer. Then came the now comes to the various magazines which Marvel has launched. I'll say it's a very competitive thing, but I'll say the top four magazines are, first of all, Next Wave, Agents of Hate. This It's a really popular comic, and I'm telling you, you guys should go through this. It's one launched by Marvel. And then we have Avengers 1963 edition model. This comic basically it revolves around Avengers story, but it has kind of a different story to it. I mean, it's the obviously the movie does have a bit of changes. And then we have the Thor comics and Amazing Spider-Man. So these are my four favorite Marvel comics.
Great talk about Marvel, Adarsh. Okay, now let's talk DC. DC Comics was founded by Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson in 1984. It is currently a subsidiary of Warner Brothers. Surprisingly, the full form of DC Comics is Detective Comics, which has caused the big joke that DC Comics is basically Detective Comics. Well, I do quite find this quite funny, and it's been joked about me and my peers quite a few times. Now, let's talk about the acquisition of Vertigo by DC Comics. Vertigo was another pretty popular comic brand, and it was acquired by DC. This brought it to great levels and increased the status quo of DC and redeemed them, if I must. Some iconic characters from DC Comics are the famous Batman, Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, need I say more? And famous works in the media of DC Comics are, of course, Watchmen, Kingdom Come, The Killing Joke. And then for movies, we have so many. Have made a few great movies here and there, of course. Wonder Woman, Dark Knight, and of course, their TV shows like The Flash and Arrow. We'll be talking about all these things later. Those were all great points, Adarsh. And okay, so now we have to talk about comics. And I think this is a pretty great part to talk about. And I think DC is definitely going to win this round. But let me still talk and give my reasons for why I think DC Comics are far better than Marvel. So let's go. Now, if you include the DC acquisition of Vertigo, eight, that's right, eight of the top 10 comics of all time are by DC. And I think this is a very interesting factor because if DC Comics are so good, then why are we even having this debate? I'll give you a few examples of these top 10 comics. There's Dark Knight Returns, which is a great story about Batman in the future and how he finds his way. There's also All Star Superman, which is a great story. You guys should definitely check that out. And Watchmen, considered the greatest comic of all time by many. This is also another great Vertigo publication, and so after the acquisition by DC, it's now a DC publication. A follow-up comic to this is come out this year, Doomsday Clock, which we'll be talking about soon enough. Watchmen is about a set of superheroes who have been forgotten and how they are trying to, reclaim themselves. And it's a very interesting story, which I definitely agree that it's a classic. Okay, so now let's talk about their overall comics. They're really excellently reviewed. I'm not kidding. These comics have great reviews. And I think this is due to the fact that they have great writers. All the way from the beginning, so the 60s, 40s, like Bob Kane. And even now, I mean, Jeff Johns, Brian Musatello, these are really Mark Wade, Mark Miller, and they're all really good. Matthew Snyder is pretty good. And due to this amazing cast of writers, you get really versatile comics, which I think is why DC's comics are better. And they've been good throughout the years, if you discount the recent New 52 run, which according to me was pretty mediocre. Sure, there's some good instances, but overall it's not a really good run. And okay, let's talk 2017. 2017 has been a pretty influential year for both Marvel and DC Comics. Let's talk to 2017. This year has been amazing for DC Comics. So let's go. First of all, there was the huge event that is DC Rebirth. DC Rebirth is an event where they rebooted the New 52. And I think this is a really great move by DC because the New 52, as I said earlier, is pretty mediocre. They did a really good job of rebooting each character and joining them with their past selves of the Silver Run. And I think that really, revitalized these comics. Some great titles here in the new DC Rebirth run are DC Battle, or more specifically Dark Knight Battle, and then there's Flash Rebirth and Batman Rebirth and Superman Rebirth, which are all pretty good comics, honestly. And one more thing, the great thing this year in comics is Doomsday Clock. That's right. Doomsday Clock is a comic by Jeff Johns, and he's trying to live up to the Watchmen. It's a continuation to Watchmen, a much-awaited sequel, and I hope it's good. So far, the reviews have been spectacular. It's going to connect the Watchmen universe to the DC universe. I think it's like leaps like these that make DC special. So I think that's my comics report. I think DC comics are way better. And I think anybody with the delusion that Marvel is better is just, kidding with themselves. In this respect, of course. Others, let's hear what you have to say about Marvel Comics.
Well, Arnie, you made really good points with comics, but now, see, the important thing is we're talking about which comics are better, right? And I'll personally say, and I'm surely about 100% about this, Marvel comics are better. Now, let's take the example of X-Men Days of Future Past. This comic has just blown up the market. If you see the sales this comic has made and the reviews that this comic has got, well then, I'm telling you, Marvel's doing a very good job. It's like Donald Trump, we're gonna make America beautiful. So Marvel is making their comics beautiful, and I'm just gonna say that. Let's take examples like Annihilation was one of the best comics Marvel ever made, right? And this is because it's just so interesting. The characters, they drag you in. It's not like DC where the superheroes, they aren't even like superheroes. It's like all the time the villain is given more importance. Like even if you take Batman versus Superman, no one actually cared about Batman and Superman. It was Lex Luthor who brought about that whole twist in the story and that whole craziness about the movie. And even if you take the Dark Knight that you were talking a lot about, the Dark Knight, it became a huge success because of the Joker, and I think everyone's gonna admit it. Like, come on, who's more popular, Batman or Joker? Any day Joker. Who loves more? Like, which characters love more? Joker. And it's a simple fact because the villains are much better, but the villains aren't the superheroes. We're talking about the superheroes, and in superheroes, Marvel has the perfect plan. But in what about in DC? I mean, and look at the comics also, right? The comics, like comics like the Age of Ultron, they just excite the readers. So when you're watching the movie, you feel that the comic is just an exact replica. Why did I pay for the movie tickets when I have the comic? And people think I don't need to go to the film. The comic's enough for me, and that shows that the comic is really, really good. And also, if you take Fantastic Four, even though it's done right now, but it's still the coming of Galactus. It was one of the best comics of all time, and I think it's rated first in terms of critics. It's got a really, really high rating, and I think the Fantastic Four was where everything started. It gave a good twist to Marvel. So I think Marvel has a very, very high chance of winning. Let's take Daredevil. Even Daredevil is a really, really good magazine. Comic, sorry. Because like you have Captain America, Kingpin, Ben Urich, and these characters, they're just like better, stronger, and hero than before. Like they're a stronger hero, man. Come on. Like in Marvel, you just see stronger. DC you only see stronger villains, but in Marvel, you see stronger heroes, and that's what is so exciting. Like, come on, like. I'll give you an example. Deadpool. Like Deadpool is in Marvel, and he was like one. It was like one of the best movies of all time, and I think we gotta admit this, right? And like despite it being A-rated, it still was like a very successful movie. And it's not big. It's just because look at the character's power. Deadpool. He can be killed by anyone. Like that's his specialty. But in DC, we can see so many killings. We can just see the villain winning everything. And that's what disappoints. And in the comics like Deadpool, it really, really interests the readers. So I'll say that DC comics are way horrible compared to Marvel, and that Marvel is gonna rock it. And I think everyone's gonna admit that it's not about the past, but it's about the future. And even in the future, Marvel comics are just gonna rock, and just gonna rock. That's all on this.
Movies. This is the one category where I think that honestly, Marvel has won. I know I could put up an argument about how DC has good movies, but honestly, you know who wins. But still, I gotta give my insights and my opinions on this. So let's go. So right now, the DCEU is going on, and the DCEU is the DC Cinematic Extended Universe. That's right, the DC Cinematic Extended Universe. And this is not a very good universe, honestly. It has only five movies, starting from Man of Steel, then going to Batman v Superman last year, Super Suicide Squad, then Wonder Woman this year, and finally Justice League in November. And it has only one good movie, and the others are pretty mediocre to bad. So let's talk about each of them. First up, we have Man of Steel, which came in 2013, starring Henry Cavill as Superman. And I think this was a solid movie on its own, but the second they tried to make it into a DC extended universe movie, that's where it started going wrong. It had a pretty solid beginning, and it started to go derailing from there. Of course, Zod and Superman's battle was pretty disastrous and led into Batman v Superman, which we're going to be talking about right now. So, Batman v Superman is probably the worst movie in this series because it's terrible. That's all. It's just a terrible movie with bad acting, a bad story, and just doesn't make much sense. Next up, we have Suicide Squad, another failed attempt by DC to get that cash. And what can I say? Jared Leto's performance did not save the movie, and neither did any of the other actors. Will Smith, Margot Robbie, they all ruined the movie. And I think it was a desperate attempt, and they failed in even that extent. Next up is Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a pretty good movie. It's an excellent movie, in fact, earning almost Marvel numbers, which is pretty surprising. And I think I love how good it was because it looks like a small redeeming factor for the DCEU. Finally, here we have this year's Justice League, which got a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that good, not that bad, but I think it's pretty mediocre. Characters were not that well fleshed out, but I think it's definitely a good try, and I definitely had fun with this movie. So now let's talk about a few previous movies which were actually good. First of all, there was the Dark Knight trilogy. The Dark Knight trilogy by Christopher Nolan, starting from 2005's Batman Begins, going through Dark Knight, and finally ending with The Dark Knight Rises, is probably the greatest film trilogy ever, if not the best DC trilogy or superhero trilogy ever. It is spectacular from beginning to end, and I think that's the only thing that redeems the DC movie slate. I mean, these three movies are stunning compared to whatever crap they have out now. Now, let's talk about each of them. Batman Begins, a gritty reboot, a gritty retelling, and it was great. I mean, Ra's al Ghul as the villain was compelling, and Batman's origin story, much more grisly, darker, was definitely a happy turn for us. Next up was Dark Knight. What can I say that hasn't been said already about Dark Knight? The Dark Knight is a great movie. Great movie. I'm not even saying comic book movie. I'm just saying a great movie overall. And finally, there's Dark Knight Rises. Not as good as the first two, but definitely better than everything other than Wonder Woman. Okay, now let's go. The original Superman and the original Batman were both good. The Christopher Reeve Superman was pretty good and held up for its time. So does the original Michael Keaton Batman. Now let's talk about the failures. Now, other than the DCU, there have been some pretty big failures, such as Batman and Robin, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and the god awful Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern. Now, I have to surrender to Marvel for this one, and I don't think I can say much more. Let's go to others. She'll probably be smirking and winning right now.
Now let's talk about some of the best movies Marvel has ever made, and I think the first one we all are gonna agree with is The Avengers. The Avengers is just like the best movie. If you haven't watched it, well, I don't know what you're doing with life. So it's a single hero picture that offers one kind of thrill, but Joss, where a weddings or rollicking bantery assemble movie delivered something bigger. A giddy group dynamic one might imagine to be impossible to teammates who fly separately through the chaos, battling the force of destruction. It captured the energy of a classic team comic while doing right by the diverse individual plotlines the team contained. The second movie I'll be rating out of all the movies, Marvel movies I've watched, is Spider-Man. Though Batman would beg to differ, comic book sequels rarely surpass their predecessors, but Sam Raimi's follow-up to his Spidey sensation improves on the first film action and effects while giving us the best baddie in the Marvel screen universe. As the tortured Doctor or Octopus, Alfred Molina's psychological reach was as long as his tentacles, culminating in a rare case of supervillain suicide. The third best movie I think is Iron Man, which was launched in 2008, and this is just because like if you look at the box office, first of all, it is really well there, and it was a self-financed production from Marvel Studios, and the entire film, it was written by Mark Fergus and Hawks Osterby, and like Tony Stark, the top US weapons manufacturer. He, like how he changes from a normal guy to this guy who with a red and gold weapon suit with somewhat ill-defined plan to use it for good. And like Downey plays off his own bad boy image wonderfully. Like the writers give him great lines to work with, and ditto that for his like Girl Friday, Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts, whose own svelte lines cannot be improved on. And this is one thing I really loved about the Iron Man, and I would say it got a really good rating. Now, the next movie I'll be giving my rating on, well, we all know this movie, Captain America the Winter Soldier. So, with the World War II origin story out of the way, filmmakers didn't stop to wallow in the culture shock of the frozen super soldier 21st century awakening. They gave the square jawed hero a hell of a conspiracy to face down, one that slyly encouraged viewers to question the kind of vastly power authorities another costumed hero might blindly obey. So, that's the fourth favorite movie, and my fifth is Spider Man. So X-Men beat it to screen by 2 years, but with its gimongous box office and certified pop appeal, the first of five live-action Spider-Man features launched the superhero genre into its current stratosphere. And as light falls on it, as Tobey Maguire's webhead himself, this fast and funny origin story holds up more than a decade later. Like especially in comparison to Marvel's CGI series, serious reboot. So these are my favorite movies in Marvel, and now I think we should talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, because this is one topic many viewers want to know about. So. We can talk about this. So, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is an American media franchise, and I mean, everyone knows that, right? So, as I was saying, there are many good movies which have come out from Marvel, like The Avengers, Iron Man 3, and Ant-Man, and the current three films faces are Captain America will be coming in 2019, and then we have the Infinity War, which just like the trailer blew up. You know, the views came like it just came rushing to them, the views. And this clearly shows that the Marvel movies, they're much better than DC, and that will add as a score for Marvel versus DC. So I think we have a really good idea of why Marvel is better than DC. Now, some feature films are Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Thor, First Avenger, Captain America, Marvel The Avengers, and Thor The Dark World, Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, and also we have Deadpool, one of the best movies. So there are many characters. Now let's talk about television series, right? And we have many television series as well. So that will be in the next point I'll be talking about.
You love it. I love it. Let's talk about TV, you guys. TV is television, and I think in this one, DC clearly has an edge. Now, let's talk about the current DC TV universe that's going on. So, also known as the Flatterverse or the Arrowverse, the DC television universe is a great universe. Television universe definitely better than the films, and I think it really has an edge over Marvel. And let's talk about each show and why it's great. First up, we have Arrow. Arrow is, I think, one of the great shows, grounded, dark, gritty, just what you need from a start to a great universe like this. It went on for 2 seasons, and then kaboom, kabam came in The Flash. The Flash is probably DC's best show and an overall great show overall. And what can I say? I've been watching it since the beginning. It's on season 4 right now, and it is great. With compelling villains, compelling stories, and I think an overall great cast. Next up is Supergirl. Supergirl started when season 2 of The Flash was going on. And Supergirl was originally not a part of the Flash, but now it is well in after season 2 brought it into the CW, which basically controls the Flatterverse right now. Now, what can I say? Supergirl is a light-hearted show which is pretty fun and interesting, and I definitely would recommend it to people, but I don't think it has the same caliber as the Flash or Arrow. And finally, a well-deserved team up is The Legends of Tomorrow. DC's Legends of Tomorrow started off as a spin-off show and now has a lot to do on its own. I think it's one of the great TV shows uh, ever by DC, and I think it really holds up even now. Now, let's talk about the Flash as a whole. Now, the DCEU sucks. I mean, we can all agree on that. But the Flowerverse is probably the most amazing thing ever. And I think it's mainly because of the time it's been given. It's been around since 2012, that's 5 years. Whereas the DCEU has only been here for 4 years, except doesn't have that much time to do the content. And of course, two new shows are coming to the DC slate, and I'm so excited about both of them. So, in January 17th, in India, of course, Black Lightning is coming out by DC, and I think it's a great show, and I'm really excited for it. It's really different. And then Titans or Teen Titans is coming out later next year actually. And they released a set photo and stuff. It looks really cool. Okay, let's talk about Smallville. Smallville was a show that aired for 10 years. That's right, 10 seasons, 10 years, airing all the way from 2001 to 2010. It is a great show revolving around the origin of Superman, or at least his yesteryears. This shows a lot of building up of character and how strong DC television was even back then. And finally, let's talk about a few failures of the DC TV universe. There's of course Flash 1990, which got cancelled, and Powerless. Powerless was a series this year, which was pretty funny and it was a really good sitcom. But the thing is, it didn't resonate with the fans and the critics. So, unfortunately, it did not succeed. That was TV, you guys. Let's talk about characters as the final round. Let's go.
So now let's talk about various television series, and the first one I want to talk about is Marvel Agents of Shield, or simply Agents of Shield. It's an American television series which was created for ABC by Joss Whedon. Now this has like Clark, Greg, Minga, Nawin, Brett Dalton, and it's just a epic show. I mean, if you haven't watched this, I don't know what you did, right? And this movie, this show, it originally aired in 2013, and like it's continuously going, and I'm telling you, it's doing pretty well in the box office. Now let's talk about the characters. So we have Clark Craig as Phil Coulson, a shield agent who oversees many of the division field operations. Then we have Ming Na Wen as Melinda May, a shield ace pilot and weapons expert. Then we have Brett Dalton as Grant Ward and Hive, who is is a Hydra agent who possesses as a Shield Black Ops specialist. So if you don't know what Black Ops is, well, it's like one of those government agency or military organizations. So yeah, that's Black Ops. And then we have Chloe Bennett as Daisy Sky Johnson, an inhuman activist and shield recruit who eventually becomes an agent with the ability to sense vibration and create earthquakes. So that's like next level. And the last, which I want to talk about, is Lane Day Casticker as Leo Fitz, who's an agent of shield who specializes in engineering and weapons technology. So he's like a very important character. And the next show I want to talk about is, well, I think we all know the show, but I'll still talk about it. Marvel's Daredevils. Now, I love the show, and it's on Netflix, basically. This show is basically about it's obviously Marvel, but we should talk about the cast. The first one I want to talk about is Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, the Daredevil, a blind lawyer who becomes a vigilant Daredevil. And then we have Deborah Ann Wool as Karen Page, an enigmatic young woman whose quest for justice sends her crashing into Murdoch's life. And the last one, Eldon Henson as Franklin Foggy Nelson, a close friend and law partner. In April 2015, Hensick spoke of his excitement for the first character role in the series. So yeah, just look at these characters; they're damn good. So even the shows which are made by Marvel, they're damn good, and I think you guys should watch these shows.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Here we are at the final segment, the conclusion. Now, I gotta convince you guys why DC is better. I think DC is better because it's a culmination of many, 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 many great things. As we spoke about. Let's go topic by topic and revise. Comic books. With the acquisition of Vertigo, DC has, wait for it, 8 out of 10 of the best comics of all time. Need I say more? Second of all, let's go to the second topic. Obviously, that was comics. Just kidding, that was movies. Movies. What can I say about movies? They're not good movies, are they? Okay, let's go next. TV shows. TV shows, I think it definitely wins this round. And since it wins both those rounds, that's why I think DC wins overall. There's going to be a second segment about the characters, but I don't think we have enough time to fit that in. But don't worry, we'll be releasing that as a bonus segment later after I edit that. So this was my conclusion. That's why I think DC is better. You guys decide in the comments. I'm gonna pass it on to others. Bye.
So Arnie, you made really great points, but I think now we should come to the big picture. And I'm going to give you 5 reasons why Marvel is better than DC. So first, let's look at Marvel's fan following compared to DC. Well, obviously everyone knows it's a bigger fan following. But I'll be giving you the 5 main. Okay, the first one is the characters in Marvel are much easier to relate. Like, come on, man, take Spider Man, Iron Man, Wolverine, or even like X Men, who, despite like accidents which turn them into like mutants, they're still inherently human. When we look at like Superman, the Flash, Aquaman, they're not really thought of as people, and like their lives completely are different from us, and it's like really their job to be superheroes. I know Clark Kent is a journalist, but that is just a clever rouse. The second thing is Avengers is a better team than Justice League, and I think everyone's gonna approve this. Now, this really seems from the first point. The Avengers, the only human is Thor, whereas in the Justice League you have a lot of supernatural influence. The Avengers, like, they bounce off each other, and their team dynamic allows them to combat evil fairly spontaneously. But the Justice League requires organization, planning, which is fine if you're planning a tea party, but not to save the world. And come on, let's check the, like, Batman versus Superman. Like, what were the producers, the directors thinking? It was like the worst movie of all time, and I think everyone's gonna agree with this. Third thing is DC characters, they just get killed off too easily. Like, if you take both Marvel and DC, they have pretty poor records for killing off their characters. But when DC comes into the picture, they have like invisible gods and aliens as superheroes who are eventually killed off, and it really defeats the point of them being superheroes. The fourth point is we'll never be able to take Aquaman seriously. The dude's mode of transportation is a seahorse. I mean, I don't need to give any further comments here. And the fifth point I'll be making is that the heroes who make Marvels, they're not the villains. Like, when someone says Marvel, who do you think of? Like Iron Man, Thor, Captain Marvel, the Hulk, Captain America. But when someone says DC, you think of the Joker, Bane, Lex Luthor. And basically that's like an anti Justice League, right? They're all great characters, but I do not doubt that. But the Marvel list of superheroes, they're Earth savers. Now, when we think of Justice League, I think about Joker, I think about Lex Luthor. I don't care about Batman or Flash. I mean, Flash is a good character, and Batman is, but I mean, when you come to the big picture, Joker is much more popular than Batman. Like, everyone loves the Joker. So it's the villains who actually make the Justice League better rather than the superheroes. So why are they even superheroes then, right? Because superheroes should be the people winning the hearts and winning the fans. And obviously this list isn't extensive, but as both have their pros and cons, however, I do prefer Marvel superheroes and what they bring to the comic books and the big screen. Even while watching Man of Steel, I still didn't feel the excitement and energy that we had from watching Iron Man or X-Men. Like, come on, like, everyone has watched Iron Man or X-Men more than Man of Steel. And however, something DC can do well is like graphic novels such as Watchmen and V for Vendetta and Sandman, which are brilliant creations. So if DC continues that, you guys have the chance. But right now, I think Marvel is gonna thrash DC and will continue to thrash DC. Thank you. So, anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this podcast slash YouTube audio video kind of thing, do subscribe Arnie's channel. That's Fanboys Unite, and also mine, Adfinity. Well, my current channel is Tech Dashboard, so please check that out too. We're going to be doing more and more collabs, so don't worry, guys. I think we'll have about 1 to 2 collabs every week. Me and Arnie are personally very good friends, and we have a lot of plans in mind. This was one of the most controversial topics in the world, so we just picked it up. And it's hard to actually choose a winner because at the end of the day, it's personal preference. Like, someone might like McDonald's, someone else might like KFC, so we can't really compare here. But we're obviously going to have more and more collabs. And by the way, I think we should, you guys tell us what we should have a collab next on, like what topics. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more updates and videos on this channel and Arnie's channel and my channel. Don't forget to subscribe and like and comment. I'll see you in the next video. And by the way, don't forget to hit that bell icon, because otherwise you're not going to get fresh notifications from our channel, and you're just going to miss on awesome collabs. See ya.